And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. It's a website. Go there. I'm not wearing a watch. I just realized that. Okay. That's unfortunate. I typically love to wear a watch, but right now, one of them is charging, and then the other two that don't require charging are sitting on the table where they live. 257. Hey, let's talk about this. I got a new interview out before this episode, and it is with Jenny Zagrino. She's a comedian, and she just put out her latest stand-up special called Gen Z, and it's going to become an album at some point on April 14th, available for purchase and available for streaming if you just want to listen to it. But right now, it is out video style on youtube.com/Comedy Central Stand-Up. I don't know. It's Comedy Central's YouTube page, and you can watch it there. It's got a lot of views. Check it out. Gen Z. All right, let's move on. I already gave that. I gave enough plugs in the last one. I just recorded it. If you want behind-the-scenes footage of what I'm doing right now. If you're watching the video, I'm trying to cover up my wrist because I'm not wearing a watch. It feels naked. How often do I record this show without a watch on? Not often. How often do you see it? Not often. What's been going on with my life? Nothing. Let's get on with the first story. This comes from The Hollywood Reporter, written by Alex Weprin. Anderson Cooper is going to host a Sunday primetime series for CNN. Now, if you watch a lot of news magazine shows, you see that Anderson Cooper, while he does have a contractual obligation with CNN, he also moonlights as a contributor on 60 Minutes, the premier news magazine show that is on television right now. I think that CNN is doing so right now. The new show is going to premiere April 16th, and it's called The Whole Story. Sunday nights on CNN at 8 p.m. I think that CNN is trying to wrangle in, or Warner is trying to wrangle in its personalities and trying to give them more direction when it comes to things that they can do at the mothership. Anderson Cooper is a great broadcaster, and he's been doing this 60 Minutes contribution thing for a very long time. But this just seems as a way for CNN to just kind of get control of what people are doing for their competitors. Now, it's not like he was working for CBS News. It was just, 60 Minutes is a CBS property. It's a Paramount property, which owns CBS, but it's not as though he's working for CBS News. Like Oprah contributed to 60 Minutes, and she also appears on CBS Mornings in order to promote her book of the month for the book of the month club, or whatever, Oprah's book of the month, whatever that is. So I don't know why they. This has to be something that was in the works for a minute. One of the most unfortunate things about it, though, is that the same thing can happen for their new 9 p.m. hour that's happening Monday through Friday. I don't know if it happens on Saturdays, but CNN Prime or Primetime, whatever it's called. One of the biggest issues about that is that CNN is a 24-hour news channel, news service, and if something big happens, God forbid, but news happens, and so if something big happens, then they're going to have to preempt the 9 p.m. hour, or this, and now really the whole story, the 8 p.m. hour, or in fact, they might just have to get rid of that hour altogether for that night, and then people aren't going to be able to watch the whole story, or they're not going to be able to watch the 9 p.m. thing. Okay, I'm writing down the title. I said it was News Happens. Chris Litch said in a statement, powered by CNN's unmatched global journalism operation, the whole story goes behind the headlines, touching every continent and corner of the planet, as we bring our viewers into the heart of the essential stories of our time. And I mean, again, it's gonna be a similar show to 60 Minutes, or a really just any news magazine style show. Litch said he wanted to add a news magazine to CNN Sunday lineup at last year's Warner Bros. Discovery Upfront, citing a goal to give CNN journalists a primetime platform to tell their stories. And it's going to be a platform for someone to tell stories that they can't tell during Jake Tapper's show or during Wolf Blitzer's two shows or hours, I think. In CNN This Morning and the rest of the shows that they air during the day, but to be stifled down to this 1 hour, I mean, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, because you're able to talk about the things that you've wanted to for such a long time, but now it's just, I mean, again, what happens if there's another earthquake in Haiti, or if there's civil unrest in the Middle East, or and it requires them to take the next 4 hours out and talk about it, versus on CBS they can do 20 minutes and then go, we're back to your regular scheduled programming, which is 60 minutes, and then you can watch 60 minutes on Paramount Plus the next day. The new series isn't exactly the news magazine show as we want it to be, but it's going to apparently each episode is only going to have one long feature. So I wonder if that means they're going to talk about, so an hour long is really 40 minutes with commercials. So it could just be they're talking about I don't know, what are things that the news talks about. Flint, Michigan. The water in Flint, Michigan, because we got to hear about that, because it hasn't been fixed for the past 16 years or whatever. Cooper, of course, has for years pulled double duty on primetime anchor on CNN as a correspondent for Sunday's CBS news magazine 60 Minutes. The new program will not impact his duties for CBS, a source familiar with the matter said. So it could be like a first look deal, essentially. It could be a deal that he could pitch a story to CBS, they might not want it. He could pitch a longer form story to CNN, they might not want it. He might have to rejigger it to work for CBS, or 60 Minutes rather, not CBS. So there you go. Good job, Anderson Cooper. Good job, CNN, for actually branching out with your programming, because you definitely need it. This next one comes from Bloomberg, written by Ashley Carmen. Spotify has spent less than 10% of its $100 million diversity fund. The fund was established, I think last year at some point. I don't remember, but it's a creator equity fund designed to promote diversity in music and podcasts, following controversial comments by the company's star podcaster Joe Rogan. And apparently they only spent less than 10% of it. It was a slow start because of hiring staff, and it suffered from shifting priorities. That's because of Spotify. And at the start of the year, the fund was still finalizing its 2023 budget and had yet to determine its priority projects. Another Spotify fund aimed at promoting diversity in podcasts suffered after that business was hit by layoffs last year. Spotify said Wednesday spending has exceeded $10 million, including funds for music, administration, and other areas. It has backed a number of initiatives in the first year, including Glow, which highlights the music from LGBTQ artists, and Nailing It, a podcast hosted by 3 black women. Sounds like they've only done 2 things. The company this week announced an expanded partnership with Spelman College, a historically black women's school in Atlanta, that will include scholarships and curriculum for students interested in podcasting. So we see these initiatives with companies, with media companies, over the past, really since George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were murdered, and it is unfortunately, I mean, these things were responses to these kinds of funds, were responses to those violent acts against people of color, and in some ways and in some cases it just seems kind of frivolous just to announce, hey, we're going to do this, but then not do anything in the first, and at all. Again, I'm going to keep harping on this until it is actually fixed. The same thing is said about Frances McDormand and the rest of the Hollywood elite. When speaking of sounding like Joe Rogan, when she went up on that stage at the Oscars, I think in 2021 or 2019, one of those years. But and she goes, one word, inclusion writer, and then everybody stood up. You saw like all the Hollywood Chris's like clapping. You saw people wiping tears away, and then no one did anything about it, except for Ava DuVernay and Michael B. Jordan. It's just flabbergasting to see companies, especially when Spotify spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on Gimlet and other and Anchor, which I'm using to do the soundboard, and it's frustrating to see these things be put kind of in bullet points and then not to be acted upon. When truly, if you put aside, Apple puts aside $1 billion to make TV shows. And for the past 3 years, we've seen them just ramp up production on TV shows and movies and really invest into the interface, even if that means the Android TV version of the app has to work on par with what the Apple TV version is, even though we don't have an Android version for the phone. And we've seen things like that. We've seen Microsoft take money and allocate it for Xbox Game Pass and really just invest into that. We've seen companies grow, and we know they can do this when they put their friggin' minds to it. But when you're a Google, when you're a Spotify, and you say, hey, I want to, in Google's case, I want to do 4 messaging platforms for some reason, and then in 3 years 2 of them are dead, and then one's on its way out, but maybe the last one will be a coverall for all of them, which is what it should have been in the first place. So take that and apply it to Spotify when you get probably one of the most controversial voices in media, and you expect him. You expect him not to say anything crazy and to play with your rules, and then you set up this fund because he says something crazy and doesn't play with your rules, and you don't act. You don't do anything for it. It should be embarrassing for Spotify to like, if you're gonna say that you're gonna invest into these areas, then do more than what you've already done. If it's $100 million, take 10 million, give it to 50 or 100 podcasts, and just let them play, and let them, like, people, like, let it be a podcast about people with that are differently abled, podcasts about people who are LGBTQ, black, Korean, Mexican. Just give it out that money, divvy up a tenth of that, and then just let people do a podcast and show that there are different voices out there. And also, maybe take $1 million and to split it into a Spotify podcast app instead of having it with the music app. Just saying. A recent study by McKinsey & Co. called for greater transparency in how companies allocate money to promote racial justice. Spotify announced the fund in February of last year after Neil Young pulled his music from the platform, citing Rogan's alleged spreading of COVID-19 misinformation. It's not alleged. He definitely did spread misinformation. Employees at the company spoke out, and that year the fund was seen, the $100 million fund, was seen as symbolic since it matched the revenue of Rogan's contract. Yeah. Then the New York Times later pegged the deal at over his deal at over $200 million. At launch, the company divided the fund between music and podcasting. Teams were organized to pitch ideas, like hosting events for podcasters and musicians, creating new shows, and helping with marketing budgets. Months passed before Spotify hired employees, 8 in total, who would ultimately oversee the journey. One job listing went live in November. The spokesperson said the company had a dedicated project manager assigned to the fund from the outset, working alongside other participating employees. I mean, if you're going to announce the fund, then I think you should promote from within. It should be. I'm sure that they have people working at Spotify who would be willing to not even just like shift their priorities, but to along with the 8 people you're going to hire to hop on a board really, and just say we have these voices that should need to be heard. We've been with this company for a long time, versus outside people coming in and saying, Spotify needs to do this and this, and then Spotify says no, we can't do that, and then they go, well, okay, well that's all we can say. It was designed to be used over 3 years, according to people Bloomberg News spoke with, but the streaming service lacked a well-structured, clear system for vetting and approving projects or allocating money. I mean, again, that's just, you have to hire. You have to get the 8 spots filled before you even have anything go. And at that point, if they announced it in February, they should have had people hired by May. Like, that's how fast they should. And that's slow to me. It should have been April. But they should have had people hired before summer, so that when the initiatives start, maybe winter time, maybe that following January, which would be this year, then things would have progressed at a faster pace. Ideas were pitched often, but not accepted. Like I'm saying, the Spotify spokesperson pointed to various projects backed by the fund as evidence the system is working, and said the fund was designed to last multiple couple years, but no specific time frame. The internal memo stated the fund's mission is to amplify the voices and work of primarily Black and LGBTQ creators. I think it's in the U.S., UK, and Brazil. I think you're going to have to push further than that, especially with that much money. Yeah, it's just, it doesn't have to. Not every project has to sound like the greatest thing in the world. You can definitely hire people who were, and like kind of in my category, who have like a lot of experience, but just haven't had a chance to really shine, more or less. And just put a bunch of small teams together and make it project based. It doesn't have to be the greatest things in the world. Truly, just do it. The spokesperson said the company also funds initiatives outside of that remit, like the Latinx space. Still. Some of the projects cited in the memo are being backed by the fund, such as the 4th season of the Pop Culture Podcast, We Said What We Said, which weren't new to the company. The money has to be used for things that are new, that'll just because you already had, if you already had shows that have been running and initiatives that have been running, that's great. Prop those up, but also bring in new initiatives. All right, let's get diverse. Come on, Spotify. You gotta know what you know what happens. All right. Let's move on to the next one. This comes from Deadline, written by Jake Cantor. BAFTA defends all-white Best TV Actress shortlist amid big drop in nominations for people of color. I've had this issue with the British, what is it called? BAFTAs, British American, something like that. What does BAFTA stand for? BAFTA. It's a British awards ceremony, British Academy Film Awards. I've had this issue with them for a very long time. Even in Hollywood, there's at least some type of diverseness when it comes to movie and television nominations. But man, oh man, the BAFTAs, I think they're a very big part. And I'll comfortably say this: I don't want to go to England. I don't want to work in England. Yeah, we'll remake Luther in American, and I'll do it. And I said in American. But the problem with the BAFTAs for a very long time is that it has been, even more so than the Academy Awards and the Emmys, has been super duper pooper white. BAFTA celebrated the number of older white women nominated for Best Actress at its television awards, amid a steep decline in ethnic diversity in performance shortlists. Ethnic diversity just sounds horrible. All 6 nominees in the leading actress are white, and have been nominated for BAFTAs across film and television multiple times in the past. Asked if BAFTA had hopes for a different outcome, CEO Jane Milichip said, "There is representation in that category." She's talked about, oh, wow, are the roles written for women over the age of 40? That's a really impressive result. That's just, oh my God. Whew. Representation for older women. I mean, it's, again, all of these women have, I'm looking at the list, including Billie Piper and Kate Winslet. I mean, these people have been in the industry for a very long time, and they're always going to get their due. They're always going to get their due. But when you have people who aren't being represented, I mean, it's insane. And then we have to not only do we have to talk about it once, but we have to keep talking about it and not just making the same jokes and references all the time. I'm talking about actually talking about it. Okay. All 6 actresses are BAFTA favorites. Deadline understands she was okay. Yeah, it's just insane to say. The drop in ethnic diversity follows concern over the BAFTA Film Awards when 47 of the 49 winners were white. The only black star on stage was co-host Allison Hammond, who I believe is a soccer person. I believe is a soccer presenter. Wow, I am looking at the winners of the 2023 BAFTAs. And it is the one of the whitest pictures I have seen in a very, oh my God, it's so bright. It is so bright. Yeah, it's getting to be very disappointing. I mean, and it's not like people are asking to be. The thing is, we're not just saying nominate for diversity's sake and vote for diversity's sake. I think, in particular, this past year rather, has been fantastic for representation on screen. I'm not just talking about black people and gay people. I'm talking about queer people. I'm talking about for Chinese people, for Mexicans, for Japanese, for Indians. I mean, for people from the Middle East, for Muslims, for Jewish people. I mean, we're just seeing a flood of great projects with people who can be represented on screen, and we only give notice. We only pay attention to the White Lotus. We only pay attention to Hacks. It's frustrating to see the same things over and over again, but to see, somebody clap at the Academy Awards because Jimmy Kimmel made a 7th joke about Will Smith and Chris Rock. I'd love to see his writer's room again. I don't think it's very diverse. It's probably one of his cousins. All right, and this final thing comes from Ars Technica, written by Kyle Orland, and The Completionist on YouTube. Today, the day that I'm recording this, Monday, March 27th, is the last day you can buy anything on the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U eShop. And the importance of game archival has come up again because the closure of these shops will definitely, especially for the eShop, especially for the 3DS eShop, it'll lock games out from ever being purchased ever again. It'll keep people from experiencing, and I would say in like 99% of the cases, some of the games, all of these games, it's crazy. Like I don't think there's not a lot of 3DS games that have made their way to the Switch or just off of the 3DS system. Sure, we can play Pokemon Crystal from the year 2002, but I think that's wrong. But it's going to be hard unless you pirate games to play Pokemon X and Y, because there's nowhere else to play that. It's going to be hard to play Kirby Robobot. Is that what it's called? And Fire Emblem Awakening and other games of that ilk. I think maybe like what games have made it off the 3DS and the DS. I Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D maybe. I don't know if that was put into Tropical Freeze. I don't know. I have yet to beat Tropical Freeze. A game I own on Switch, and I have yet to beat it. But I think I got it for like $20 or $30 on a rare buy one get one sale or buy two get one sale at Target. I got that and New Super Mario Brothers U Switch, or New Super Mario Brothers. Yes, U Switch, U Deluxe, whatever it's called, and something else because I got. It doesn't matter. Okay. Anyway, there are people out there who are looking to archive these games for future. I mean, like there's a whole act. What is it called? A whole organization that does video game, not copyright, video game preservation. But the challenge is there are headaches with the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which prevents. I'm reading from this Ars Technica article from Kyle Orland, which prevents people from making copies of any DRM protected digital work. And if you are a Nintendo fan, or like even if you just like watch a Nintendo review on YouTube, you'll see that if people aren't partners with Nintendo, they'll take down the review like that or the video like that. The U.S. Copyright Office has issued exemptions for the rules to allow libraries and research institutions to make digital copies for archival purchases. Those organizations can even distribute archived digital copies of items like ebooks, DVDs, and even generic computer software to researchers through online access systems. But those systems leave out video games. So now we have people like the Strong Museum of Play who have maintained all current 3DS and Wii U eShop copies. That, quote, the only way anyone could ever legally play or study those games is if they flew to Rochester, signed a consent form, and sat in the premises playing it. Jesus. Then there's other places like the Video Game History Foundation that they've or have tried to archive all of the games themselves. There's you can access, if you go to Internet Archive, which is it's a legal archive of everything. It's a library online. It's archive.org. There's a lot of games on there that you can download because they are legally emulated on there. But Nintendo doesn't want to be part of that online arcade. They don't want you playing their games for free, which is understandable. However, I think I used to when I was younger, and I didn't have any money, I would download movies and TV shows and games, and then when I got money, as an adult, in college, then streaming came about, and then things just became so much easier. You could go to Redbox and rent a DVD instead of downloading the latest movie or watching it online. And now everything's just so easy to get that there's no reason that people should have to or even want to illegally obtain anything. Now, however, I've been like very strict about that for the past couple of years, but then now with things like this, it kind of makes me go, okay, well, I mean, I want to be able to play Fire Emblem Awakening at some point, and I don't have $90 to spend on a copy. Preservationists, the Copyright Office, has sided with the with the ESA and other industry groups during a 2021 rulemaking process. Researchers who want to legally access professionally archived game collections still have to travel to wherever those collections are stored. Now, the Completionist over on his YouTube channel got his crew together, which include, I think it was like 8 guys, who throughout the course of several months of work just downloaded games across one 3DS and one Wii U because that's how Nintendo still operates. and like I think it was something like dozens of SD cards across both systems, and you can only download one game at a time, and you could only add so many funds to your Wii U eShop or to your eShop period, and then you had to download DLC one at a time, and then for a lot of 3DS games you could only download DLC at certain points within the game. So, for instance, like Fire Emblem Awake or Birthright, rather, Conquest or Birthright, it's the same thing. In order to download the DLC that came with that game or that came after that game, you had to get like 2 hours into the game, and then you could download it, which is an insane step process for these things to happen. I mean and now they completed the goal. They have every single game that from the 3DS and the Wii U, but it's so crazy. I understand that it is like people like that companies don't want their games to be played for free or the ROMs or emulators to have anything to do with I don't know, with the games or whatever. But I just especially if a game has been delisted, like in modern day now, on the PlayStation Store or on the Xbox Store, it sucks because you have to like for a lot of times you just want to go back and just play a game that you remember from that you grew up with, or compare it to the latest iteration of that game. If I want to go back and play Forza Horizon 1, a game which I own, so thankfully I can download it to my Xbox at any time. But if I didn't own it prior to that, I was willing to spend $15 to go download it, but then I went to the storefront and it's not there, then that would just be frustrating because what if Forza Horizon 6 comes out and I go, oh man, I've never played the first one, let me go back and check it out, and I don't own the game, and I'm up the creek without a paddle. I mean, it's just, I mean, everything should be, and this is, I was not a Bernie fan when he was running. I was Elizabeth Warren, but I think that if everything should be available to everybody, and the only thing stopping everybody from watching Succession season 4 on HBO Max, or from playing Pokemon X on a 3DS, is just purchasing it legally directly from the source, or subscribing legally to HBO Max directly from the source. Like the option should not be to, hey, I haven't seen Lloyd in Space, it's not on Disney Plus, I'm gonna go to YouTube and Google and then put in Lloyd in Space and watch the 3 episodes that someone illegally uploaded there. It just sucks. It sucks. And it should not come to that. Anyway, all right, listen, we're done here. If you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talk to your favorite comedians. Like Jenny Zagrino, just put out that one. I got another one coming up. I already interviewed her. I already interviewed the most recent person, and hopefully if another one comes in, then I can put that one with the other one, because it's a little short. You can, if you want to see a video version of the show, head to the website, youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can see a video version of this show. You can see a plate that had a donut on it in the background. You can see last week when it was freezing cold in Atlanta, Georgia, you can see a cardigan sitting on a chair. But now it's warm. It's hot as balls. You can see me sitting on a Monday at 12:41 in my office chair. Oh, excuse me, my dining room chair. My dining room / office chair. YouTube.com/cpluscomedy, as well as if you want to see video versions of the other podcasts, which include Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show on that as well. It's a late night show, not recap. I just talk about the things that are good. And I have a monologue and I do jokes. And then LinkedIn Logs, which is our premier business podcast, which is where I try to become a LinkedIn influencer / OnlyFan. That. You can also subscribe to all of the podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at C Plus Comedy. Follow me on those platforms at Chad Black White. Rate, review, subscribe. Tell your friends about the show, and we're going to go. Goodbye.